Do you ever turn on the news wanting to be informed about what's going on in the community or the world, and then finish watching it with this sinking feeling in your gut? When there are 2 mass shootings in a period of 2 days, how are we supposed to send our kids out and about without worry, or decide to go to the mall without suspicion about everybody around us? When I hear stories about a hunger crisis halfway across the world, my gut is to want to turn the TV off, pick up the phone, and do something that can immediately solve that problem and get food to people who really need it. But then I sit down for dinner with my family, and instead the feeling of guilt hits me like a ton of bricks. Where do I even begin? I truly believe that God wants us to live as hope-filled people, but what do we do when so many things get in the way of that hope? Hey everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Our daily doses this whole week are inspired by a series of devotions written by an author named Bob Goff called Live in Grace, Walk in Love. And today I want to invite you to think about this idea of hope. When hope is used as a verb, there's momentum, even excitement behind it. Hoping is defined as the act of looking forward with desire and reasonable confidence. When we hope, we're tuned in toward the future. We have the idea that things could happen, they will happen, and our attitudes about that hope, at least initially, they could be contagious. If you have ever planted a garden, you know what it's like to feel hope. One winter, my husband Hans came home from Menards with a bag of potting soil, 6 tiny black containers, and 1 pack of tomato seeds. And I can remember this was a really, really cold March or maybe early April, and he felt like this would be a fun project not only for our kids to be a part of, but as something that could give us all something green to look forward to when the winter was feeling bleak. So we planted these seeds, we set them in the windowsill, and we checked on them every single day, watering them when they needed it. And if you've ever tried this, you know that it doesn't take long for a tiny green sprout to pop up out of the soil. And you continue this process of love, of checking and tending and transplanting, of moving to a bigger windowsill until it's finally nice enough to move these tomatoes outside. And all along you are hoping that all this work you put into it will turn into something, anything. You have to prune one of those seedlings if you planted more than one in order to give the tomato plant enough space to grow. There are all these things you have to think about. You have to figure out what to do how to get them water when you're heading on vacation. You have to balance the amount of fertilizer so there are enough nutrients, but not too many. And you have to deal with the realization that sometimes your dog steals the tomatoes right off the vine when you're not paying attention, and then you get none of the fruit you desperately hoped for. In one quick turn of events, your hopes are dashed. Hope is a tricky thing, no doubt. In the Bible, in the book of John, chapter 18, Jesus is on trial. He's been betrayed by his best friend, denied by one of the disciples who loved him most. He faces questions from one authority and is eventually sent to another leader named Pilate. And he's facing arrest, even death. And Jesus says to Pilate in the book of John, he says, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders, but now my kingdom is from another place." The thing that Jesus says is that he is God. He's in the form of a human who came to walk on earth with us. He knew there would be hard times, unexplainable times, where we look around us and hope seems in short supply. But as author Bob Goff writes, Jesus is reminding us that God's kingdom of love would have the last word. We continue with our contagious momentum of hope because we are the ones, as Jesus followers, who get to lay the groundwork for his return when God's kingdom and this world will be one. So yes, it's easy to let that sinking feeling in your gut take over some days when you turn on the news, when you turn to your tomato plants. But here's to the hope that we've been given and to the hope we get to give in return. Thanks so much for tuning into the Daily Dose. We would love for you to hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or share this message with a friend who might need some hope.